Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for joining me for another video. If you've never seen my face before, my name is Rodnique and I just do random things on the internet. I don't really have a niche yet, but we're working on getting there. But today I decided that I'm going to share with you guys my favorite podcast. And I know that that sounds weird. I know that that's not like the typical video, I guess, on my channel, but if you know me in real life, you know that I'm always listening to podcasts 24/7. I always have at least one AirPod in 98% of the time, and I'm usually listening to a podcast. I don't even really listen to music anymore. I have no idea what's even popular as far as music goes, and I really struggle to find music, but I do know about podcasts and I know about a lot of good podcasts, and I thought that this video would be good for people who don't listen to podcasts but they want to, they just don't really know where to start or what shows are good, or people who have listened to podcasts before but they need something new, they need something refreshed. Now, I'm not saying that all of these podcasts are new, but I am saying that these are all of my favorites, and so if you haven't heard of any of these podcasts, then you should definitely check them out. None of this video is sponsored. This is all just my personal opinion. So if you want to know what I listen to and what my favorite podcasts are, then just keep on watching. Alright, so I kind of have three categories of podcasts: entertainment plus education, true crime and spooky, and then like self-improvement or self-development, whatever, or personal development, whatever you want to call it. We're gonna start with the entertainment category, and the very first podcast that I want to mention is This Podcast Will Kill You. Now, I know that that sounds a little intense and you're probably thinking like, shouldn't that be in the true crime category? But no, it shouldn't. So this podcast is hosted by Aaron Welch and Aaron Allman Updike. They're both disease ecologists. Okay, if you don't know, disease ecology is a rapidly developing subdiscipline of ecology concerned with how species interact and abiotic components of the environment affect patterns and process of disease. I know it sounds super boring, but I promise it's not. I found this podcast, I want to say maybe like 2 years ago, and I love it. So they basically talk about, you know, different diseases of the world. They have episodes on COVID. They have episodes on sexually transmitted diseases, on, what's the word? Not extinct diseases, eradicated diseases. That's the word that I'm looking for. And how not only does that disease process and how the process goes inside of our body, but also how the world has encountered these diseases and how the world has handled them and where we are as far as, you know, cures and vaccines and, you know, disease progression as of today. I would say fun. I'm gonna say that the podcast is fun. Every episode they have a drink that you can make along with your listening. It's called a Quarantini, and then they also have a non-alcoholic Placebo-Rita. All of the websites for these pods will be listed down below in the description box, so I highly recommend you check out the Aarons. It is kind of overwhelming when you first go to their page and you see how many episodes that there are. I would recommend listening to their very first episode on the 1918 influenza pandemic. I would also recommend you listen to episode 14. That one's about rabies, and I think that ever since listening to that episode, rabies is just like such a cool disease to me. I would also recommend episode 36, which is on syphilis. I learned a lot about syphilis that I didn't know before. I was able to kind of get rid of some of those preconceived notions. Also, if you are, I don't want to get too political here, but if you are interested in learning more about vaccines and how they work and how they've come to be, then they also have a couple of really great episodes about vaccines specifically that I would highly recommend you listen to. They're very educational and they teach a lot. But the next podcast that I'm going to talk about is R Slash, and R Slash is not a new podcast. I think they've been out for like maybe like a year and a half. They're very popular here on YouTube. They the host Dabney, it's all I've ever gotten for his name, he puts out these videos, R Slash videos, not only on his podcast platform but also here on YouTube. So if you just want to watch it on YouTube, you can do that as well. So basically he just reads Reddit stories. Each episode is categorized by the subreddit that it comes from. So he has Am I the Asshole episodes, malicious compliance episodes, entitled parents episodes. Like, There are so many episodes, and what I really love about this podcast is that the episodes are short and they're also very entertaining. Like, he uses different voices, he'll put on his 2 cents, he makes it really dramatic, which I personally love. And if you live in a city like mine where everything is 20 minutes from anywhere, then it's really good to put on for like those shorter drives, and you'll get through the whole episode. It's really nice to put on when you have friends or a significant other in the car, because sometimes it can spark a conversation, and again, it's just really entertaining. So I would definitely recommend you check out r/. Some of my favorite episodes are, of course, Am I the Asshole? Ask Reddit is also a really good one, and then I also love Malicious Compliance. That's another one of my favorite subreddits. Next podcast that I'm going to talk about is, again, another Reddit podcast. This one is Two Hot Takes, and the host is Morgan Ashley Absher. I hope I'm saying that right, Morgan. If I'm not, I'm so sorry. Please don't hate me. I love you so much. But again, they just read more Reddit stories. The categories kind of vary, and the episodes aren't divided by category, kind of like r/ is, so you really don't know what you're gonna get or what subreddit these are coming from. But every episode she has on different guests. So she has on her boyfriend, she has on her friend, she has on her dad, she has on her brother, she has on her sister-in-law, just so many different people in her life, and you get so many different perspectives on these stories, and some of these stories are wild. And one of the things that I love a lot about Two Hot Takes in particular is that they have a wide variety of story genres or themes throughout their episodes. So there's one episode that's like really wholesome, and one episode all about divorce, and another episode all about mother-in-laws, and another episode about paranormal, and another about murder. Like, it's everywhere. I'm not fully through it yet, through the entire podcast yet, so I can't really recommend like specific episodes, but I would say if you see anything with Jerry, her dad, he is so funny, and I love every episode that he is in. There's also I'm gonna butcher her name, and I am so sorry, babe. There's an episode featuring Drew. I don't want to say it wrong. I really don't want to say it wrong. Like, it's on the tip of my tongue and I want to say it, but I don't want to say it wrong. So I'm going to put her name here. If you are on TikTok or you are on Instagram, you've seen her before, you know her, you love her, and her episode is really good. The next podcast I have to mention is probably something that should be in the true crime category or like the spooky category, but I don't know. It doesn't give spooky. It doesn't give true crime, even though it's technically about crimes. It's about things that are illegal. So this podcast is called Scam Goddess. It is hosted by Lacey Mosley. She is just so energetic, and she just makes you feel so good, even though she's talking about people getting scammed. Like, she's talking about people getting scammed, people who are doing the scamming, the scammers, the swindlers, the D-boys, all of them, okay? And I really love this podcast. She has on guests. It just really makes, it's a different feel than a like crime podcast, so I think that's why I put it in the entertainment section. Her theme song is fire. Okay, and if you listen to the podcast, then you know that she recorded her theme song, all of the vocals as well as the music, by herself. The talent. They recently did an episode on Candace Owens, which is so funny and just so eye-opening. Like, I never realized, like, I knew that she wasn't shit. I'm not gonna get into that because I'm not a political person, but I knew she wasn't shit. But what I didn't know is all of the scams that she has been a part of over her little... But yeah, if you have not, check out Scam Goddess. It's a really good podcast. We're gonna jump into the true crime spooky category. Y'all know that's my favorite category. First podcast I'm gonna talk about is a Black women podcast. We love that. It is Sisters Who Kill, and I believe that this podcast is newer. I want to say that they've only probably been around for like a year and a half. Don't quote me on that. They are hosted by Mara and Taz, and I love this podcast. One, because the stories are very niched down specifically to Black women who kill, and that's not a niche that you can really find anywhere else. In this podcast, it specifically focuses on Black women, and I've never found a podcast that focuses on Black women and true crime. So I really love that. Again, it's hosted by Mara and Taz. They are two Black women, and it just sounds like you just sitting down chatting with your girls. Like, I'm just gonna tell you about Shanterica, who stabbed her roommate. It's real casual, and I absolutely love this podcast. I would recommend that every single person check it out. If you're into true crime even a little bit, you're going to love this podcast. Some of my favorite episodes, because they do have quite a few as of now, is the Assata Shakur episode. I really learned a lot that I did not previously know. The Cyntoia Brown episode was, again, very eye-opening, put in a lot of details and a lot of nuance that I didn't really know about that case. It also led me to read Cyntoia's book, which is amazing. And the Shanterica Madden episode, let me tell you, that episode is wild. And then they have this one part where they talk about the trial, and they have this music say, take that shit to trial, bitch, take that shit to trial. I don't know what that's from. It sounds like it's from a commercial. I've never seen that commercial, I'm sorry, but I love it. I love everything about sisters who kill. The next podcast we're going to talk about is called Sword and Scale. Now, you've probably heard, I feel like if you're in the true crime podcast space, I think you've probably heard of Sword and Scale. I believe they've been out since like 2015, 2016. I don't know, I'm really not sure, but they've been around long enough to have like 200 some odd episodes, so there's more than enough for you to listen to. If you are new to true crime podcasts, I would not recommend you start with Sword and Scale. So it's described on Apple as a true crime podcast that is an immersive audio experience covering the dark side of humanity and human nature. I would definitely say it is an immersive audio experience. I highly recommend, if you're going to listen to the podcast, to listen to it with headphones in, because it makes it just so much more powerful. The host, Mike Boudet, does a great job on every single episode, and his voice really just does something to kind of add to the experience of the podcast, which I really, really love. But again, it is a very dark podcast. It is very hard to listen to it sometimes. It can get really intense. So I would recommend, if you have been through all the other true crime podcasts and you like, I want some hard shit, go to Sword and Scale. So this next one kind of falls more into the spooky category than the true crime category, but again, we're gonna add it in here. It's called Let's Not Meet. It is hosted by Andrew Tate, and I believe that the podcast did start from Reddit, but I don't believe he reads Reddit stories. I believe that some of the stories he reads are from Reddit with people's permission, but most of the stories I believe that people write to him or send him. Let's Not Meet. It's amazing. These stories are, again, really, really intense. If you're somebody who like can't watch a scary movie by yourself, I wouldn't recommend listening to this podcast by yourself, because they can get very, very intense. But he basically reads scary stories about close encounters with dangerous people or situations. There's stalker stories, wrong place, wrong time stories, close calls, almost death stories. Like, there's so many different kinds of stories, and they all just like really, they make you anxious. I'm not even gonna lie. But if you're the type of person, you like fear, you know, you like to be a little scared, you know, you want to look over your shoulder in the middle of the afternoon, that's what this podcast is giving. I love Andrew Tate's voice, and the audio that he adds to the podcast is really, really just like, it's really creepy. Like, you feel like when you hear it, you feel like something's about to happen, something bad is about to happen. He tells multiple stories in one episode, so you can just sit for a whole story and then just like turn it off and you're good, and you can come back to it later when you are ready to come back to it. Again, it is a very intense experience, so take your time with this podcast, because it will freak you out. Like, it's freaked me out on multiple occasions. The next podcast that we have is, again, probably not new to a lot of people, but it's one that I really love a lot. It's called Morbid. It's from the Morbid Podcast Network, and it is hosted by Ash and Elena, and it's described in their description as a lighthearted nightmare, and I would definitely agree. They really deep dive into true crime cases, spooky places, and paranormal phenomenon. And I'm going to tell you, I don't really like paranormal stories like that, but I'll listen to Morbid's paranormal stories, to be honest. They definitely keep it lighthearted, but they can really get kind of deep and kind of dark in some episodes, so I would just be aware of that. They do give you a trigger warning beforehand, you know, this is really heavy, this is a lot, if you can't handle this right now, don't do it. But they go into a lot of different cases that are super popular, cases that you've never heard of before. Some of my favorite episodes from Morbid are the Lori Vallow episode because I had no idea who Lori Vallow was, and damn, that bitch is crazy. One of their older episodes is the Kurt Cobain episode. Again, I learned a lot from this episode that I did not know about Kurt Cobain and about Courtney Love, and now I think that Courtney Love killed him, but we're not gonna talk about that. Ash and Elena are super funny, they're super warm, and it gives what they said they was gonna give. They said they was gonna give Lighthearted Nightmare, and that's... So the last two podcasts that I'm going to talk about are podcasts that I'm sort of newer to. I just discovered these, but I really, really love them, and I wanted to include them in this video in case you want to check them out. The first one is called Red Handed. It is hosted by Hannah and Sharuti. They are based out of the UK, so they have a lot of cases that are not only like US and UK cases that you've heard 1,000 times, but they have cases from all over the world that you've probably never heard of, or if you have heard of, you've never really gotten a deep dive into these cases. I haven't gotten through all of their episodes, so I don't have any to recommend to you guys, but I would definitely check out their podcast. I guess if I had to like recommend one, I could recommend the episode that they did on the Ken and Barbie killers, Carla Homolka and Paul Bernardo. I was gonna say Carl Bernardo. That episode is really good. I believe it is a two-parter, but it's definitely a good two-parter to start in. They also introduced me to the case of Kelly Lane, an Australian woman who had 5 secret pregnancies and now is in jail for a missing child. Yeah, that was like, my mind was blown. Yeah, so check out those episodes on Red Handed. The last podcast that I have to talk about in my true crime spooky category is Rotten Mango. And when you see first of all, the cover art, I've seen it for months, but I don't know, like, it drew me in, and I was like, you're gonna listen to that, but not right now. And I just started listening like maybe a week ago, and we've been getting through those episodes. That's been my exclusive. I will wake up in the morning and we immediately hit play on Rotten, and we just keep going until I go to bed at night. I absolutely love it. It is hosted by Stephanie Sue, and I believe her boyfriend, husband, something like that, I don't know, but he's there too. You know, he gives his little commentary, his little 2 cents every once in a while, but it's mostly Stephanie who's doing the storytelling, and she's really, really good at it. She's really, really good at putting you in the story, making you feel like you're there in the middle of the shit. And I really love it, and I really, really love her voice because it's like so high-pitched and it sounds like so bubbly, and then you realize what she's talking about and you're like, this ain't a bubbly subject. But it's really, really, really good. I would definitely recommend listening to Rotten Mango. If you have to start somewhere, I would recommend starting on the Hillside Stranglers episodes. I believe that one is a 2-parter as well, but it was so good that I just could not stop listening. Like, my boyfriend was sitting on the couch and he was like, hey, come watch a movie with me, and I was like, I gotta finish this episode first. Sorry, I know this story and I know what happens, but there was so much detail that I've never heard before, so I really, really highly recommend the Hillside Strangler episodes on Rotten if you want to check them out. Okay, so we are coming to a close. We are getting towards the end. I'm saying that for myself, to keep myself up, because it's real hot in here. I'm sweating. We're gonna get into something a little bit more lighthearted. We are going to talk about self-improvement and personal development. So the very first one is Nothing Much Happens, and this is exactly what it sounds like. It is sleep stories for adults, bedtime stories for adults. It's hosted by Catherine Nicolai, and the audio engineering is by Bob Wittersheim. If you know, you know. It's so soothing to my soul. The stories are literally about cleaning your room and taking a nap in the middle of a summer day, going to the pumpkin patch or to the holiday farmers market. There's not really a lot of like big things that happen that you need to pay attention to, which makes it perfect for sleep, because it's just a simple story to kind of ease your mind and relax your brain into sleep. And I really, really love it. I listen to it at least 3 or 4 times a week to help me get to sleep. Catherine Nicolai's voice is just so soothing, and if you can't get to sleep and you're literally just listening to the story, it truly is a beautiful story. Finding the small things that make you happy, and finding the small things in life that just bring you joy and make you feel nice and warm inside. It's really, really good. I would definitely recommend. There are a lot of episodes. I've listened to every single episode up to date. I would recommend the most recent episode that I really, really liked is called Light a Candle, and then another one is The Holly and the Ivy. The Holly and the Ivy is more of like a Christmassy holiday story, but regardless of that, it's still really, really good. If you struggle with falling asleep, like I do, I will lay there, my brain will just go, and this really gives my brain something to focus on, something nice and beautiful to focus on while I'm going off to sleep. All right, so the next podcast I have is called Empowered Affirmations, and I don't think I've ever heard her say her like full name, but in the little description it says Jess. So it's hosted by Jess, and it is just about affirmations, and they have affirmations for so many different things. Really anything you can think of, they have an affirmation for it. And I like the format of the podcast because she says the affirmation, you're really able to take in what she's saying and take in her words, and then you repeat that affirmation back. I will shamelessly admit that I say these affirmations on a daily basis. I will stand in the mirror and say these affirmations to myself. Some of my favorite episodes are affirmations for wealth and money making, start of day affirmations, and then there's an episode on affirmations for growth on social media. The affirmations for growth on social media is a really good episode if you are an inspiring YouTuber or TikToker or blogger or whatever influencer. If you are trying to get into the social media space, you have to kind of change some of those beliefs about social media and what that means for you and what that means for your life. And I really love those affirmations. I also say those on a daily basis, so I would definitely check out Empowered Affirmations. Alrighty, so we're getting down to the last two of this video. So the next one I want to talk about is On Purpose with Jay Shetty. This podcast is super popular, and it wasn't really until a couple years ago when I got into like personal development that I discovered this podcast, and I fell in love with it. Fell in love with it so much that I even bought Jay Shetty's book on Audible called Think Like a Monk, and it's such a good book. I would highly recommend checking that out, whether on a regular book or audio book or whatever. Again, it's hosted by Jay Shetty, and Jay Shetty wants to make wisdom go viral. He is a former monk who speaks with insightful people and gives lessons on how to be mentally healthy and to do better in every aspect of the mind. It's insightful, and it offers topics to think critically about how to ease your mind and how to improve your mindset, and how those things ultimately lead to a better, more fulfilled life. I have listened to quite a few episodes of Jay Shetty. He does do an episode with Mel Robbins. I absolutely love Mel Robbins. I think she is amazing. That episode is really powerful and really spoke to my soul, so I would recommend that episode. Jay Shetty also did an episode with Big Sean when his latest album just came out, and it really gave me more information on like the mindset of Big Sean and like what he's been through and where he's been, and it was just really powerful. Alrighty, and the last podcast that we have to talk about is called A Daughter's Dilemma. Now, A Daughter's Dilemma is hosted by myself and my own mother, and we talk about mother and daughter relationships, their interactions with one another, things that keep them from getting close with each other and keep them from building those relationships. We talk about a lot about how to open up, how to speak your truth, how to be a better parent, how to be a better child, how to be a better person. We talk about all types of things. We talk about Reddit stories. We talk about true crime. We conversations with my younger brother. We talk about, you know, dad versus mom. We talk about so many different things that pertain to helping mother and daughters improve their relationship, and I would definitely recommend that you check it out. I think some of our better episodes to listen to, we have a episode on do parents treat their kids differently, and that one features my little brother Michael. And then we also have some true crime episodes in there. I would recommend listening to the episode 15 of season 1, Miriam Rodriguez Martinez. That episode is really good, where I showcase a true crime story about a mother who literally takes on the Mexican cartel to avenge her daughter. But I'll of course leave a link down to A Daughter's Dilemma down below. If you can follow us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Stitcher, on everywhere. And it would also really help us if you do like our podcast. It would really help us if you would leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Just give us a quick 5 stars. Just write a small review. I would really appreciate it. But that is it. That is all, guys. That is all of my favorite podcasts that I love to listen to. Some of these I listen to on a daily basis. Some of these I will literally stalk when a new episode comes out because I need to listen to the episode like right now. Of course, I love like other podcasts that are more popular, but I wanted to talk about some that I really don't hear people talk about a lot. If you've heard of any of these these podcasts and you love them, go ahead and let me know which ones you love down below. What are your favorite podcasts and what do you like to listen to? Whether it's music, whether it's podcasts, it doesn't matter. Leave me some suggestions down below because I'm always listening to new things to listen to. Like I said, I always have at least one AirPod in, like 98% of the time. So I'm always listening to something and I would love to hear from you guys. I want to say thank you to every single one of you for sticking with me and watching this video. If you like this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. It really helps my channel grow. If you want to see more of my face, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button. And if you want to know when I put up a new video, go ahead and hit the notification bell so you can get notified every time I put up a new video every Wednesday and Sunday. Bye.